Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the January 8th, first of the year Planning Commission meeting. Wish you all a Happy New Year, I guess. That's what you feel? Why it's
Are all the cell phones off?
You want to check mine? How embarrassing. I did turn it off, but I got a new cell phone. I have to get the chip changed in, so I'll get a new one, and then the switch will stay on. Okay, our first item is salute the flag. Let's do that. Ken, would you like to lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We now have a report from the planning director. AJ? Oh, roll call. I apologize.
Maybe that's what I should say.
I'm trying to get out of here as quick as I can. Yeah.
I'm happy to do roll call.
Mr. Gray? Mr. Nader? Mr. Moss?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Rikuchi?
Here.
Mr. Denayo?
Here.
Mr. Sevison?
Here. Now we're back on. Sorry, AJ. Yeah, your turn.
The Planning Services Division. First, I'd like to congratulate Commissioners Larry Sevison, Ken Denayo, and Rich Rikuchi for being reappointed to the Planning Commission. So, Rich, you've had 4 years on the commission. Ken Denayo, 14 years you've been a member of our commission. 16. Is that why you looked at me like that? 16 years. And then Larry, an unprecedented 34 years, which we hope that number's right, but none of us.
I still can't get it right.
I'm not sure who in this room was actually around then, so we can't really confirm that 34, but that's what we have on the book.
Well,
So.
Bill Briner was the one that appointed me. I think it was 1969.
Well, I'm happy to say at least I was born. So, staff, we certainly appreciate your service. We also look forward to working with all of you in 2015, which looks like it's going to be an extremely busy year, but that's good for all of us. So on Tuesday, the Board of Supervisors heard a couple items that your Planning Commission has made recommendations on. The one was Placer Vineyard specific plan amendment. That was approved, so we're already starting to work with the first phase development group on the first phasing plan, and there's 6 property owner groups in that area that are getting ready to submit large lot and small lot maps for that. So we're going to continue processing those applications. The other item was the Sheridan Community Plan update. I'm not sure how many trips we took to the board, but we had several trips. They finally did take action. They approved the plan, and I'll just highlight 4 of the things that they did at the board. One was they removed the United Auburn Indian Community, the 1,178 acres from the plan area. They modified the zoning of that 33-acre site that was south of the town center. That was the one on the corner of Sheridan, Lincoln Boulevard, and North Nader Road. They ended up changing the zone land use from industrial park to farm with a 10-acre minimum. I think original proposed was a 20-acre minimum. Right, so that was the decision. There's also language added to extend bus service to Sheridan, and then the new plan also recognizes that a significant area south of the town site is within the Lincoln Airport overflight zone, so any new development in that area has to be reviewed by the Placer County Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan, or with that in mind. So upcoming Planning Commission meetings, we were talking about going to Tahoe at the end of this month. Those Tahoe projects have stalled, so we don't need to make a trip up to Tahoe. We will have a meeting on the 22nd. It will be here in Auburn. Just a couple items right now. There's an extension of time and then an appeal of a variance that we're looking at. And I think that's all I have. We have some matters of business to follow up this, and we can jump into that if you guys are ready to.
So you just say that Tahoe Scratch now, the Squaw Valley Stables is not going to be the big thing.
Yeah, on that agenda, we originally had Squaw Valley Ranch Estates. There's the North Shore gas station. We also had like a residential edition. We were also going to give an update on the Squaw Valley specific plan. So we'll wait on that until we get some items together enough to make a trip up there.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's got to be at least a heavy snow.
Well, right. That's all I got.
Any questions of EJ? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
On your next item, which is the swearing in of the planning commissioners, we couldn't notice Mr. Sevenson's reappointment because it didn't happen until yesterday. So in order to swear him in also, what I'd like to do is have the planning commission make a motion to add Mr. Sevenson's name to the next item so that we can swear him in also.
I move that we add Larry to the next item.
Second.
Second, any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
I'll abstain. Okay, thank you. Okay, do you swear us in? Is that how, or Kathy does it, doesn't she? Do we have to read this spiel?
Yeah, if we could have the three commissioners stand up.
Commissioner Donayo, Commissioner Riccucci, Commissioner Sevis.
Here.
Here, raise your right hand, repeat after me. I, state your name,
Ken Denayo,
I, Larry Sevison,
do solemnly swear
do
solemnly
solemnly
swear
that I will support and defend
that
I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear truth, faith, and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California.
I take this obligation freely,
I take this obligation freely,
without any mental reservations
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
that I will and faithfully,
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
that I will faithfully discharge the duties of which I am about to enter.
Thank you.
Yeah?
The next order of business is the selection of officers. And if we could have, there's three positions, if we could have nominations for each one individually, and then a vote on that.
Well, in order of seniority, we have a sheet of paper that gives us some direction if we choose to follow it. If I suppose that's optional at this point. Is there? Should we start with the chairman's position?
That would be appropriate.
And I accept the nomination for.
Nominate Ken Denayo. Second.
We have a motion and a second to submit Ken Denayo name and for election. Is there anyone else that would care to submit any other names? Hearing none, the process is closed. All those in favor of the nominee? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You lose. Okay, how about vice chairman? Is there a nomination for vice chairman?
Nominate Richard Cucci.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So ordered. Congratulations, sucker. Then it's,
Is it now that I make my big speech or later on?
Yeah.
I think
No, please.
after lunch. Okay, there was also a suggestion that Wayne Nader be considered for secretary. If
I'll nominate Wayne Nader.
Second.
we have a motion and a second, is there any further nominations? Hearing none. All those in favor of Wayne Nader for secretary?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? You have to be quiet now.
I was going to say.
Okay, so we have now a new slate of officers: Ken Denio, Chairman; Richard Wakuchi, Vice Chairman; and Wayne Nader, Secretary. And we wish you all the best in your term of office next year.
Yeah.
Have a warm seat. I'll move my junk. You want to just trade chairs for now?
Yeah, sure. That way you can poke me when I do something wrong.
My coffee cup.
Yeah, I know. I got a good person on each side of me, so that way when I make a mistake, they can poke me. It is amazing how often when you're sitting in this seat that it's the people next to you that keep you on track. It's really appreciated.
So Chairman Denio, I'll help you with the next item on the agenda, which is approval of a 2015 meeting calendar for the Planning Commission. And typically, the Planning Commission meets the second and fourth Thursday of every month. Looking at the calendar for next year with holidays and just the meetings in general, there's only three changes from that second and fourth Thursday. And one is a February 5th meeting, which is a new meeting added, and then also in November, changing the dates to November 5th and November 19th. So we're asking for your approval of that calendar.
Okay, so February 5th, November 9th, and November 15th changes.
I'm not sure we got this. So February 5th, November 5th, and November 19th.
Oh, 19th.
Okay.
Well, no, those are actual dates we're asking for. The schedule in front of you are the actual meeting dates for that year. They're all on Thursday.
Okay, do we have a motion to accept the commission meeting dates with changes as made?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Have a motion second. Roll call.
Mr. Sevison?
Yes?
Mr. Gray? Yes. Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Riccucci? Yes. Mr. Denio?
Yes. Okay, that's done, so we'll go ahead and move on to public comment. If anybody in the public has anything they would like to bring before the commission, now is your chance, as long as it's not something that's on our agenda today. Seeing no one, we'll go ahead and move to our 10:05 item, Rogers variance. And it looks like on that one, we're looking for an extension of time.
On this one, we're looking to continue it to the January 22nd, 2015 Planning Commission hearing. The appellant couldn't be here today. So yes, we're requesting a continuance to this item. It's the appeal of the zoning administrator's decision to deny the Rogers variance. And we have confirmed that he will be here on the 22nd.
Okay. Maybe just before we extend it, is there anybody in the audience here that came here specifically for this item? Okay, seeing that.
I did. Oh.
Do we have a motion to continue it?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we continue the Rogers variance to the January 22nd, 2015 meeting. Do we have a time specific we'd like to continue it to?
Kathy, is there a time that you have for that?
10:05, do you want to do a time or do you want to?
Time certain is fine.
Okay,
10:05 will work.
10:05.
Second?
Okay, Rich seconds. Roll call?
Mr. Sevison?
Yes.
Mr. Gray? Yes. Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Riccucci?
Yes.
Mr. Denio?
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move to our 1010 item, Sunset Industrial Area Plan Update. This is the introductory workshop for it. So
Sherry?
Good morning, Sherry Conway, Senior Planner with the Planning Services Division. It's so nice to see you all. I'm going to apologize ahead of time. I've got a little of the drip going on. But I asked EJ if we could convene and bring the Planning Commission up to speed with this exciting project that the division has undertaken in the past couple of months. So let's begin. I'm really not very... EJ's going to help me out. By way of background, in late 2014,
This will get you
just to
signed.
point this, right? In late,
So that it's the commission, not to interrupt, but the commissioners, we got this new laser pointer, which.
Yeah, that's,
Is that it?
Yeah.
So you might want to use that.
That's really cool. I'm so
All
sorry.
right, now you're set.
it just melted the screen.
It really is. I'm not a James Bond girl, though. In late 2014, the Board of Supervisors provided direction to staff to update the Sunset Area Plan. And one of the provisions that they were interested in was an assessment of infrastructure needs out in that area. And one of the reasons that they're interested in is that in the last 20 years, we've had several catalysts for change that have occurred, one of which is the proposed Placer Ranch project with the city of Roseville, one of which I'm sure you're familiar is the Thunder Valley Casino Resort, which interestingly enough wasn't even a glimmer in the 1997 Sunset Industrial Area Plan. So that tells you how quickly things have changed. And the proposed Placer Parkway. Again, seemingly challenged. There we go. Most of you are familiar, probably. Some of you have even worked on this. The area plan was last adopted in 1997. And land use policies and regulations have historically limited non-residential uses around the landfill and the MRF operations. So just to give you some perspective on where the Sunset area is in relation to all of western Placer County, the Sunset Industrial Area, as it previously has been known, is about an 8,100 square acre area right here. It's bounded to the north by the city of Lincoln, but to the east by the city of Rockland, and then to the south by the city of Roseville. So you can see that Placer Parkway, as planned, does kind of transact the area. Some of the other projects which either were approved earlier in the decade and just kind of went to sleep, or are now coming forward. So it gives you a perspective of all of the activity in western Placer County that the Sunset area is a part of. This is an aerial view, which I find aerial photography to be a great way to have a bird's eye understanding of what's on the ground. To give you some perspective, Highway 65 runs north and south, bordering the area to the west. Industrial Avenue is where the predominant amount of activity development has occurred in the last couple of decades. Sunset Boulevard interchange was improved just in the last couple of years. I don't know if you can quite see it. The Cincinnati Avenue is this smaller line that runs also in a north-south direction, and then Nichols Avenue in Duluth is down in this section. This is the predominant area of what's out there right now. The former Formica plant is here, and that has been purchased, that property, recently, and it is undergoing a lot of tenant improvements right now. The Ace Hardware Distribution Center is here. The Rio Bravo power plant is here. This is the self-storage. And right here is the Thunder Valley Casino Resort. Over further to the west is the Western Placer Regional Landfill, the Materials Recovery Facility, and their composting operation. The proposed Placer Ranch project encompasses pretty much the whole southern tier of the Sunset area. A little bit of this as well. So you can see there isn't a whole lot that's happened out there in the 20 years that have ensued since the adoption of the 1997 plan.
Sherry, that map doesn't reflect it, but Sunset does now connect to Athens.
Sunset does now connect to Athens. It actually
Out there.
comes up in that way. You're absolutely right. I guess this aerial is older. So while we have seen, and actually that's the way that if you get off at that Sunset interchange, you'll right away see directional signs that point you either to the landfill or to the casino right there. So that is the direction that most folks travel to get to either of those destinations. Let me continue on here. Just by way of background, the proposed Placer Ranch project is a product of the West Park communities, and it sort of gives you an idea of what right now is their land use proposal. The purple that's designated in the center is proposed to be a Sacramento State satellite campus. Some of this red that you see right at that Placer Parkway interchange is proposed to be a mixed commercial use. The yellow down here implies low-density residential. Some of the brown, the light and darker browns, are kind of a medium to higher density residential. And then again, this lighter shade of red is more services, so mixed commercial as well. And there is an application that's been submitted to the City of Roseville for this project. So what are we looking at? So the board was interested in finding out why the Sunset area hasn't fully developed its capacity. It was identified for upwards of 40 years as being the potential economic engine for the county, but it's fallen short of that goal. So one of the first pieces that we're interested in is conducting a full economic market analysis. In other words, what's happening out there in the greater region, state, and beyond? What are the infrastructure needs that may be a constraint or have been a constraint to development out there? And then what are the financing options that we could explore to get that infrastructure in place to encourage businesses to come and locate in the Sunset area? We've been tossing around some ideas. Because it's such a large area, upwards of 8,100 acres, there has been contemplated sort of a districting approach, and this is just completely hypothetical at this point, but it makes sense to think, well, there's some industrial that's already happened down here in the southeast. Maybe the northeast, which is centered around the resort casino, could enter into an entertainment or a recreation zone, maybe some kind of business park, So rather than approaching it as this one very, very large piece of property, we can start to compartmentalize potential uses. So backing up, back in November, the Board of Supervisors approved a contract with a consulting team comprised of Mintier Harnish, who will be performing a land use analysis for us. The firm EPS, Economic Planning Systems, who is right now embarking on a market trend analysis, and they're fully underway with that. Some of the other sub-consultants to the team include Kittleson and Associates. They're going to be performing the traffic analysis. Somas Engineering, who are going to be bringing forward the infrastructure assessment. And Joe DeCrecchio, who is going to be assisting us with developing a vision plan, so that one of the hopes is that once we have identified some potential new land use designations, we can bring together a marketing piece that our county economic development team can bring out as they go out and tout the area and try to attract, some of those anchor businesses that would absolutely spur future development for the area. Let's see, what else can I tell you? I would say with the holidays having interrupted us, we're fully underway in this first piece, market analysis, and we're busy providing the consultants with a massive amount of data. And this is coming from multiple agencies and departments throughout the county that we've assembled to assist us with this task. It's a lot of information. But what it will do is assist EPS in building this scenario. I believe in your packets there is a list of sort of the work plan. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have about the specific tasks that the consultants are undertaking. But maybe with that, I will pause and take any questions that you might have. This is a really exciting project. It's a very aggressive schedule. As you can see, we hope to have some deliberations by the end of this calendar year. And as a planning document goes, that's fairly ambitious. So we're working really hard to stay on schedule. We've got a great consulting team and an internal county team, so we're working to achieve and stay on track. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
I wanted to talk about the Parkway and the Placer Parkway, because that's going to have a significant impact going right through this area. Is there any timing on that? I know it's a very expensive project, and as I understand, the Whitney interchange is about to start to break ground, and that'll be the main access off of 65 to the Placer Parkway.
Correct.
And I believe that's going to break ground this next year. Is that your understanding?
That is my understanding.
The City of Rockland is...
City of Rockland is actually moving forward. So this is the Whitney interchange? No, it's up here. It's up here. I don't have a map that shows. I don't have a good map that shows it. Do I?
There you go. I mean,
You can, well,
well,
actually, this
Okay.
this gives you an idea. So
yeah,
this
that's
comes
Whitney
up
right there.
right here.
What's
So
the mean for the whole parkway?
That's why I guess the question, that was like a $300 million project.
right, my understanding is the Department of Public Works is in the final phases. They're about to release the admin draft for the EIR. So we'll have more information in the next month, I think.
Do you know how much of that interchange is going to be done as it goes towards industrial at this point? It's not going to go over the, let's say, the railroad tracks into that area at this time, past the cogen plant. I don't think it's going to go that far. It's just going to be the interchange right now. Is that
This first
your
phase, yeah,
understanding?
I believe. Ultimately, the right-of-way does go through the cogen
Right, yeah, it was
parcel.
between a cogen
And a piece of
and
Formica.
yeah, the old Formica plant. Right.
And then it comes down and levels out as it parallels the north end of the Placer Ranch project. So it's a very expensive project, and it will, obviously
Right.
happen in phases over many, many,
Right.
many years. But it's a critical link between Highway 65 and ultimately Highway 99, which will, as you see it from a regional perspective, provide access for things like this project in an
Provides-
east-west direction.
Provides an alternative to 80, which is pretty critical for the growth of that area.
Absolutely. But I think the city of Rockland is ready to begin. They're finished design on the Whitney interchange, so I don't know if construction is imminent this spring or in the summer. It's close.
Does it go over and tie in or baseline?
No,
I don't think it,
no,
no, it
it
doesn't.
goes directly
It goes
across, it's farther down.
It's
to the-
meant as an expressway
Yeah,
to accommodate the environmental community. They have very limited access on this. I think there's only, aside from Whitney, and then you'll see another one that's at in Placer Ranch, and I'm not sure what that's right there by the Murph, whether is that I guess another interchange?
This is the Fitiment Road right now,
that's-
and
yeah,
there's
so it's
actually a
right-
proposed realignment of Fitiment Road
I
as
think
part
that's
of
the
Placer.
last one in Placer County. That's the last interchange, I believe, on the
Before it
Yeah.
dips out, yeah. These are the three interchanges that will be contained within the Sunset area.
Highway 70, is that what it is?
99.
Oh,
99.
yeah.
Come out by not Rago, but
It's
what's
farther
north?
down,
What,
yeah, be north of it.
right,
Next.
right.
I'm assuming in the negotiations with Placer Ranch, the easement rights are in the discussion of that, right? I would assume.
For the right-of-way?
For the Parkway, Placer Parkway. Is it?
I would assume so. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
the,
I
the right of way. I'm not sure how much, if any of that right of way has been obtained.
It does show in their conceptual plan that it's
Right,
there.
that they,
so I assume
and I'm sure that's part of it, because I would assume if Placer Ranch moves forward, that would probably come fairly close behind it.
Commissioners, the City of Roseville has released the notice of preparation for the EIR for the Placer Ranch project, and I'm fairly confident that that will be something that's discussed not only in the comments to the NOP, but also within the EIR as to that right-of-way and the alignment of the Placer Parkway.
will there be some condition for Placer Ranch to financially support the parkway? Because that's going to be a Roseville project. Is there, because the county, I mean, this is going to be a critical infrastructure project for Placer Ranch.
Right.
Because it's not a county project, the Placer Ranch is not in the county or is proposing.
No, let me
not to.
clarify something. The Placer Ranch is within the boundaries of the county.
But they've decided to go towards the city.
They are requesting annexation into the city of Roseville. That has not been completed, nor have the discussions between the county and the city regarding tax sharing agreements or anything related to the annexation occurred. So all of those sort of questions, I have no doubt, will play a large role in how this shakes out as to whether or not it does annex to the city of Roseville.
So the county could require in that agreement of annexation or allowing the annexation something related to the parkway.
I really can't answer that because it's something that hasn't really been addressed in any detail yet, but it is certainly something that is on the radar of the county.
Thank you.
So I guess, just kind of brings the question, with Placer Ranch in light of this analysis, where does it sit?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
That's kind of an abstract question, I guess. It's kind of like the city of Roseville is, I guess, a property owner has showed interest in annexation.
West Park Communities acquired the previous Placer Ranch project last year, and they have made application to the city to pursue an annexation for the project. It's roughly 2,200 acres of the overall Sunset Industrial Area. So it's this bottom third, more or less.
So in the context of this study, is that just going to be kind of you might say a black hole in the study? Or
The scope of work that we've engaged the consultants to look at right now includes the entire 8,100 acres because it is still fully contained within unincorporated Placer County.
And so I guess the study then will look at it from the perspective of the property owners in terms of what their plans are?
One of the, and if you look toward your scope of work, one of the early pieces that the consultants are working with us on is kind of a stakeholder outreach. In fact, before the consultants were retained, I developed a survey and it went out. We had it sent out to over close to 500, 460, Kathy? Business owners, property owners, lessors, prospective developers. It was a pretty a massive effort. And it was an electronic survey, so that was kind of fun. And we've gotten results back on feedback, specific feedback from folks that are actually doing business out there who are interested in bringing business to there. So we have a good finger on the pulse of what's happening right now. We have sort of this, we're painting a picture of existing conditions, so that will help the consultants look at options for the future. So we are cognizant that we have property owners out there, we have businesses out there who are interested in expanding. We also know that businesses have left, and we're trying to understand, what their reasons for relocating to other areas were. Was it money? Was it land? Was it infrastructure, utilities? We do know there are constraints of sewer out in this area. Other than what services the industrial in Cincinnati Avenue, there isn't really anything in this part of the area. So it's a constraint right now for a business to come there when sewer availability is limited like it is. I don't know if that answered your question, Commissioner.
What is the current sewer, what service is that now? Is that Roseville that services?
Everything dumps into Roseville.
Right now.
Yeah, I guess what my question, and I don't know if I can phrase it very well, but
I may be able to take a stab at it if I understood your question. I mean, just like any large planning effort that's underway, any projects that are proposed at the time, those are considered as part of the process. So Placer Ranch is definitely a project. It's being processed by the city right now, but it will be part of this planning effort. We'll look at that just like we look at all the other uses out there. Whether it's Thunder Valley and any expansion plans they have, or the landfill or whatever uses. So we're looking at the entire area, and that will be the discussions that are included.
Okay, so I guess, like a question comes up, at least it's my understanding, that part of the idea for this industrial area was to keep sensitive housing and that type of stuff, a distance back from the dump. So the solid waste transfer solid waste area, so that in a few years you don't lose viability of that area just because of what's happened around it. And so I guess, will this have any impact on that, or is it just kind of, how do you think about that as a process?
Well, the vision, I can tell you right now, is job creation. It's one of the goals. The Board of Supervisors is interested in economic development. So housing, as a whole, isn't really, there's no land use designated right now for housing outside of the Placer Ranch project. Historically, the predominant land use designation has been industrial. One of the things that consultants are going to be looking at is that the highest and best use? Are there other potential zone designations that may foster and attract businesses that would result in quality job creation? So I don't see residential designations coming into play, but I do see perhaps a shift from this idea of 100% industrial to something else, or a combination of different land uses. And on that same note, one of the goals of this plan is to really rebrand the area and give it a new life, give it a new sort of connotation. So where we've always called it the Sunset Industrial Area, that does conjure up, at least for me, smokestacks and, warehouses and assembly lines. And in fact, an idea is being tossed around calling it something like an innovation district or the Sunset Innovation Area, because that's really allows us to have some flexibility. So whether it's R&D or corporate parks, or this is the type of new stamp we want to put on this brand, and that will in turn help attract developers and businesses who might not be thinking about those kinds of uses, because right now we're just calling it the industrial area.
But I guess is preservation of the landfill still a primary objective, or is that something that's still kind of open in this study?
We do still have the general plan policy in effect, which says a 1 mile buffer. Obviously, this landfill is doing a great job of diversifying and pulling products out of the waste stream. One of the things that the consultants will be looking at is potential end users of some of those recycled products that are used and generated right here in the MRF. Also, suppliers to the MRF, so it's kind of a two-way. So instead of being a constraint, the landfill and its ancillary operations like the compost facility and the MRF become opportunities. So it's kind of shifting how we've always viewed this facility. It's always been viewed as a constraint, well, when in fact there are opportunities that could result in job creation that may come out of this. So I think it just depends on your perspective.
Okay, well I think I've got a picture now, thank you.
When we're looking at this area and its lack of use, or the lack of interest in the area that's occurred, are fee structures being and permitting process, is that being considered also as to
Absolutely.
why it doesn't happen out there?
In our preliminary survey that we undertook this fall, we asked some standard questions, and we also allowed respondents to, freewheel it. Tell us what you think. And one of the consistent responses we heard were twofold. your fees are too high, and your processes are too slow. So this is the kind of information that's important for us and the consultants to understand so that we could move toward a goal of more build-ready parcels, infrastructure being in place, streamlined entitlement. So that's very much something that affects the bottom line of businesses. When they're ready to go, they want to know with some certainty what it's going to cost and how long it's going to take. And so, yes, in the past, we have heard that those two have been constraints for businesses coming to the Sunset area. So one of the ideas with our environmental document that will accompany this, the EIR, is that it will be a tiering document. So forward from this process, there'll be a more streamlined environmental review approach that businesses, developers coming in will can look forward to. So that's another piece of this that we're cognizant of. And this is a different animal than a lot of community plans that you've looked at in your tenure here, because we don't have a lot of residential. We don't have residents that we're meeting with. These are businesses, and businesses are interested in what affects their bottom line. So it's a very different demographic than we typically see with a community plan update.
Sherry, I'd like to follow up on Richard's question about the restrictions around the MRF there. Our family had property right at the top end of that where it says City of Lincoln, and we were in the process of developing it. Right in there, we touched that right there. And to give a perspective, that's about a mile from the MRF. And we actually had to modify our development to set it back because they didn't want any residential within that mile. And so what I'm trying to figure out is how is Placer Ranch, who's going to be basically the only buffer between the MRF and Placer Ranch is basically going to be Placer Parkway, how the county is going to allow that residential to be that close to the facility.
So Placer Parkway will come down in.
Correct. And
the active cell that they're working on at the landfill right now is this cell.
Right, but Placer Ranch is just right next to that.
And Placer Ranch is right below.
So I guess I'm curious how the county is going to let that happen.
And again, to dovetail on what Karen was saying, the NOP for that project is now on the streets, and we can certainly provide a copy of that to you all. You're interested in reading it? It's good. And that will give you some.
I'd like to just clarify, not clarify, but add on to both what Wayne and what Richard were saying. When I was on the council, got off the Rosa City Council in November of 2008, and Placer Ranch was already in the middle of stuff, and here it is 6 years later, and, well, I won't say nothing's happened, but there was that line drawn right through the middle of Placer Ranch where you couldn't be within that a mile and a half. And I don't know, it's been kind of quiet lately, but people on North Blue Oaks right up against the industrial area there, that development in Roseville, had all kinds of complaints about the smell and everything else. So unless I like the positive business about the MRF, but unless they change operations, and over time, I'm sure they will, and they have already, obviously. But to get rid of the perception and the actuality of the smell of the operation, it's going to be pretty limited where you can draw that line. I mean, yeah, you can modify it a little bit, but Placer Parkway is not going to stop the winds from the north or whatever. But I think that's going to be a real problem. I hope they do look into this. I don't know how broad the study is going to be, but that would be not just for the residents, but how about if this is developed into light industrial, whatever? I don't think you'd want to back something right up against the MRF if it's going to be a constant irritant to everybody. So I hope the study addresses that part, since the three of us have brought that up already. So.
Right. And again, I want to reiterate, if you look at the scope of work, the SWOT analysis, this opportunities and constraints piece that the consultants are looking at. Certainly a constraint could be the landfill. And so that's one of the pieces that we're looking at, is to try to understand everything that's out there and how it can all fit together.
I guess, just to thought to add on to that.
That's not my phone.
It's mine and it's shut off. Sorry.
Well, we had a little bit of humor that came into our discussion, and that's good.
Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah, now I almost forgot what I was going to say. But it seems like, to me, it seems like with this study going on and in the city of Roseville doing a study, and if they're kind of diametrically not headed down the same path, I guess that's probably what I'm having trouble, because you can see where, following up on the smell questions, and I do hear about that. I'm on the solid waste task force, and so I attend the meetings and beginning to understand it a little bit more. I've just been there a little while, but they do hear complaints about the smell, and they do constantly struggle to work on that. But at any rate, it seems like at some point in time, if the Placer Ranch starts developing pretty much as shows there, then it might lead to the demise of the facility in the future, as far as people move into next airports, and the airport has to move out of town, and so I see that as a potential problem for the study, and how you bring those two together. I don't know. That's a question I guess you're going to have to struggle with.
Sherry, I wanted to talk about the environmental piece of this. And if you could go back to the aerial map that we had up a moment ago.
It was further, it was earlier on. Well,
That shows that that's pretty good there with the wetlands.
is it just,
It's there. So.
it's not, oh, I don't know about that.
There.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, the environmental because obviously we already have a conservation area within the industrial area, the Orchard Creek, which is up in the right-hand corner in there.
Right, and this is a mitigation bank.
Right. Nothing's going to happen there.
No.
And because I'm sort of familiar, obviously, since we have property next to it, there are a tremendous amount of wetlands out there. Vernal pools are
Right in
just,
the corner.
There's
Yeah.
nothing but vernal pools out through there. Plus Orchard Creek, that darker area, as you can see coming down through there, is down a little lower there, Sherry, right? That dark area through there is all part of that lower area in Orchard Creek. And what I was going to ask is, are the environmental piece going to look at what is really practical from how many acres there really is for a potential of development? The Corps of Engineers is getting really hard on this, and the mitigation is almost impractical now. So I think it's really going to limit what truly is out there for the potential of development. So.
What we're hoping is that as this project progresses, so too will the PCCP's conclusion.
Right.
And once that document is finished, we'll know for sure whether assumptions can be made about taking wetlands down south of Athens because of this. This is also a mitigation bank, right. So quite a bit of the northern quadrant. But you're right. What does it leave? What are the actual developable acres? It's not 8,000.
Even with the conservation agreement that hopefully will be done soon, that isn't going to avoid all the mitigation that's going to have to take place if they designate a particular area as it's acceptable to develop. So, and again, the cost of mitigations is just insane right now. So I don't know if it's, again, practical to say, okay, we can develop this when you start running the numbers, it doesn't look like it's
right.
possible.
And that's part of the cost analysis that the consultants are going to run. That has to be built into the cost of developing out here. Even if the county takes the lead, in terms of the 404 permitting, it right. still will be a costly process. We're hoping that the time will be reduced, but the cost at the end of the day, will still be significant. There's a wetland here, interestingly enough, that was created when Formica's production, was full speed back in the 60s and 70s. It kind of created its own vernal pool and wetland area, and this now is actually all going away with the cessation of the operations there over the last couple of decades. So it'll be interesting how the Corps looks at this. The new owner of this property is actually processing a 404 permit right now. So I'll be curious to see, as things have shifted and drainages and uses over time out there have changed.
Well, anybody even drove a truck out there when it's wet and they leave their tracks and water sits in it, it's now a vernal pool. It's navigable waters,
Yeah.
according to the Corps of Engineers and the EPA.
Put a golf course out there.
It seems to me that in the past few years that we have actually looked at several proposed projects here in Estuary.
You have not?
Huh?
I'm sorry, you said you had not seen?
We have.
Oh, yes, yeah, there.
Special permits, in fact, have been granted in this area. Apparently, they just haven't been able to go forward.
It sounds like that's been one of the constraints. Another is the lack of sewer, to the degree that some of these businesses need them. So I think that's what the consultants will vet out is, what are the realistic constraints to what's on the ground today? This facility was designed, this is a self-storage facility. This facility was designed around vernal pools. But certainly it's going to cost some money to get around some of those environmental constraints that are out there.
Well, I wouldn't think that the sewer is a big issue or it shouldn't be, because at the top end of your left-hand side is the Lincoln's new large sewer treatment plant. Obviously, it's going to take some pump stations to probably get it over there, but at least there's an alternative to Roseville.
There is a bond in place, I believe, and I'm not a public works person, but a bond in place that splits right at where the watershed splits. And it's my understanding that everything north of Athens has to go to the city. Everything south of Athens goes to Roseville.
Because there's, Roseville's facilities are right, yeah.
It's a lot to digest, and feel free to call me. And my hope is as we start to glean some data and some information from the consultants over the coming months, that we can have them come in and schedule another workshop for you, for your commission, and have you really wrap your arms around this and look at the data, the actual science that they're coming up with. It's exciting. So we're at the very inception of it, but I wanted to at least let you know we're underway. The consultant team is working diligently. I just got off a conference call with them earlier before coming in here. So they're busy, and we're busy, and we're hoping that this is a study that lays the groundwork for this to actually turn into the economic engine that we've always envisioned it could be out in western Placer County. No more?
Any other questions? Anybody in the public like to come up and comment on this?
My name's Al Roten, and I'm from Lincoln. What about the future of what I would call Mount Trashmore there with the MRF? How much longer can we build that hill? And what's the future there?
EJ, you probably have that. I remember, but I don't want to make any statements off the top of my head.
I don't
when
have
I
that.
saw it, because I know it's going to be a mountain out there.
The total height out.
And
yeah.
how many years? Because it was, I think last time it was like a 50-year.
Yeah, that's information I don't have, but there's obviously a limit set in place and a time frame of that. But that's information we can, obviously, if you leave your name with us, we can get that information to you, and then we can provide that to the commission the next time we see you as well.
Thank you.
Chair Denio, members of the commission. I'm Paul Richardson. I work for Municipal Resource Group. In a past life, I used to be the planning director for the city of Roseville, but right now I'm under contract to help process the Placer Ranch project. So I know you had a bunch of questions about that, so I'm really here to kind of clarify the questions you had going forward rather than augment. But if I can go back. One of the questions you had was about the Placer Parkway. How do I go back, EJ? I think you and Sherry took the pointer. Is it up there?
Oh, is it?
Is it part of this? First you have to be smarter than. Oh, it is. Okay, it looked like a pen. You had asked a question. That's Whitney Ranch, which is under construction. The county is currently doing environmental review for that segment of Placer Parkway. Part of the Placer Ranch project, the city's expectation is that they will dedicate the right-of-way for Placer Ranch, and that's similar with the Amoroso Ranch specific plan over here. I don't know if you're aware, the city and the county have adopted Tier 2 traffic impact fees to help fund and finance at least the portions of Placer Ranch there. So as part of that project, it'll be, the land area will be dedicated. Whether they actually grade or not, that's to be determined. If I can go back to the land use plan, I can ask a couple other questions that you had about the land use plan. Let me see if I can come up with that. There was a couple of questions about the MRF, the material recovery facility. Back in January of 2013, and I think EJ was involved in this as well, the city and the county did a kind of I would call it an early consultation process on the land use plan, trying to get big picture issues resolved. And one of the issues was the MRF actually sits, this is the existing Fitment line, that's where the existing material recovery facility is. And you can see a high tension power line right there, which kind of creates a barrier for the material recovery facility. So one of the early discussions by the facility staff was how to better utilize the properties. And so the concept was to swing Fitment to the east, and what that allows is rather than taking the they're building these hills and taking it back down to Fitment Road, it allows you to keep the fill and then extend it across a realigned Fitment Road. And that does, maybe I can go back to go to this other map. Here's the existing alignment. By swinging Fitment out, you're able to take these cells and move them to the east, and that does a couple things. It pushes the cell away from residential. It also pushes it away from the kind of business portion of the Sunset industrial area, which was kind of a goal of the county. So that was part of the reason why the Fitment Road was shifted. And if you look at the land use plan, did I go the wrong way? If you look at the land use plan, you can see all the residential is kind of over here, and it's trying to respect the distance separation from the facility. The other question was what's going on with the coordination between infrastructure for the city and county. In fact, Sherry just coordinated a meeting with the consultants that are working on the Sunset Industrial Area and the consultants that are working for the infrastructure for Placer Ranch. And really the whole goal was how do you combine and make sure the sewer facilities work for Sunset Industrial Area, because it all goes to the Pleasant Grove wastewater treatment plant that's down here. How do we make sure that there's infrastructure oversizing for conveying water, because probably the water supply for Sunset Industrial Area, and this is going to come from PCWA, which means that there's going to have to be water, in order to facilitate that, and looking at kind of how the drainage works. So I think those were the couple of questions you had. Was the Placer that I heard was the Placer Parkway, and then the material recovery facility. The other thing is, I don't know if you're all aware, there's I don't know if you call them an odor consultant. They've got monitors that they're up there right now. They're monitoring the wind and the odor from the material recovery facility, trying to identify, what is the source, because some of it's not just the recovery facility. Some of it's from other, actually the Rio Bravo facility actually generates it. But what does the the MRF need to do going forward in the next 30 years to, limit odor at high generating times, and they're actually doing monitoring, and this project is looking to, help facilitate. Is there any other operational things that need to occur to limit the odor? So my response was just to kind of answer some of the questions I heard you all talk, and I'm happy to answer any other questions that you might have.
Well, I guess if some of the odor monitoring is, how can I say this, adverse to the plan that you have up here. Right. Like you mentioned the facility, Rio Bravo facility causes problems too. And, those are some things that the Sunset area was set aside to allow uses.
Right.
And so, now we put these new uses in there and they're not able to be successful to fix those problems. And I guess the question I'm having is, well, I guess that means then, do they have to leave town?
Well, what I can say is that's kind of what an environmental impact report is kind of all about, to assess what the baseline issues are and what, if any, mitigations need to occur. Some of the mitigations are, protecting, creating landfill buffers like a distance away, but some of them may be what can projects do to help the operations of the MRF to limit the odor so that you can actually have a viable landfill plan, as well as allow some of the other uses that you want to encourage out in the Sunset Industrial area, business, research and development, those types of things. So, but hopefully the environmental impact report, both for Placer Ranch and for the Sunset Industrial area, will, analyze and, inform the decision makers on what decisions need to be made going forward to, as you say, protect the landfill and also, facilitate the type of business interest you want to occur.
So it sounds like you're going to have to work pretty much hand in hand on this project.
Exactly. I agree.
You don't have the 1 mile buffer.
I know. This is actually, the residential is actually set at 3/4 mile. That was
So
the.
you're going to ask for an exception on that.
Yeah, the part of it is that, and this is hard to assess, the 1 mile buffer really wasn't a scientific buffer, it was more of a policy buffer. So the environmental impact analysis is certainly going to look at, use the noise monitoring and those types of things to inform what the appropriate boundary is. But I don't know if you can see it. I guess you don't have it on this plan. On earlier iterations, it had 1/4 mile, 1/2 mile, 3/4 mile buffer from the landfill authority, but it's not. I don't see it shown on this plan.
Well, when we were working on our project north of this, it was a hard line, 1 mile.
Right.
I mean, a hard line. They wouldn't even listen to us. Right. So I'm curious if you're proposing to move the Fitiment interchange or the Fitiment Road to the west, you're actually going to the road's going to cut right into the expansion area for the MRF. So what's going to happen there? Because that really kind of blows a hole in that little narrow piece that they were going to use for.
Well, what you have is you have this high tension power line corridor
right.
that bisects the site, plus Fitiment Road. What it does is the landfill authority said it actually improves. If I can get this, it actually improves. I don't know if you can see. You can see the power line corridor right through there. This whole segment you would have had in a separate cell, whereas if you swing it out, this is a combined. You know what I'm saying? It's a combined area that you can actually build up, take across Fitiment and bring it down. It makes a larger cell capacity, so it actually improves the capacity of the facility rather than. I don't know how to explain it. You have Fitiment Road. You have bring a cell, bring it up, bring it down to Fitiment, then bring the cell up and bring it over. This way, with Fitiment out, you can bring the cell up and cover it all the way over. So you actually increase the capacity, and you also have the potentially to free up an area for other type of land use if you want.
On that, can you tell about where the interchange would be by what that lower circle?
You mean the new Fitterman
Where
interchange?
that would be right.
It'd be about right there. That's approximate.
And I assume it comes back into Fitterman at some point. Up and
Yes,
up.
it would. The intent is it would swing up and then it would tie back into Fitterment north. But again, that's part of the iterative process of going through a land use planning process. It's kind of an idea concept that came out of the land use plan between the city and the county and the MRF. It's still, the EIR has to analyze the impacts and things like that. So the actual.
Yeah, and Paul, you're swinging the Fitterman Road's going to go up close to the high tension. Where it comes across.
Right now, Fitterman Road does go up under the high tension power line corridor, so it'll swing up and out, and basically you'd free up that entire area for landfill expansion area.
And then what's for the high tension lines? Because I know in your diagram of Placer Ranch, you really don't show the easement area for the tension lines as it goes through.
You can see it right here.
Right, but usually where you have that green open space up a little bit, you'd have that underneath the lines all the way through, right?
There will probably, this is the university, this is a land, there'll be some kind of, you can't build underneath that, so what land use goes underneath that, whether it's trails or parking or things like that, it's hard to say at this point.
There is some residential west of Fitterman Road called Amaruso Estates.
Amaruso Ranch, yeah, I think that's shown.
Is that going to be included in the analysis of moving these stuff left or going further to the west?
Oh gosh, I'm messing it up.
Yeah, right.
First, you got to be smarter than the.
Well, you don't have to find it. I'm just asking, will that be included? Because there is residential already in the area.
That is, you mean in terms of. There it is.
And it's within that.
This is Amaruso Ranch is, here's the MRF and here's the expansion site. Amaruso Ranch is substantially beyond the.
No, I'm talking about Amaruso Estates, which is already there.
Oh, this.
Which is right up there, right? That one road, there's about 200 or 300 homes in there, a couple hundred anyway.
Right.
Will this be included, since we're going to be moving, you might say the MRF to the left, to the west?
They will certainly get noticed. One of the issues involving them is the East Sunset. That's their primary access to that. So,
yes, I know.
So if the roadway gets shifted, that's certainly going to have to be examined very closely. But it doesn't expand the site. It just utilizes the site differently by swinging the road.
And then since there is a lifespan on any dump where eventually once the mountain is completely made, it sort of goes away, and then it's a non-issue.
I can't
because
I know that the life Eric Otto's not here
eventually too, wouldn't it? Because once the landfill is completely utilized, and then you'd have to move it.
I mean, we are years out from that, and I mean, with all the questions on the landfill, what I would suggest is for a future workshop is we have Eric Otto, with the landfill come and kind of give an overview of what their plans really are. Then we can get some good answers to your questions.
It seems like you would keep the recovery and then have a transfer station and haul it to X place, but you would keep that facility as a transfer station at the very least. I mean, you can't get along without that.
Yeah, there's so many factors that play into the life of the of the landfill, even technology and everything else. So it's that's constantly changing. So I think it's a good topic to bring back to the commission just as an informational item.
I know we had a couple of cells up at the lake or below Squaw Valley, and they're all put to bed, and I don't know of any bad fallout from it at this point, but it'd be interesting to know as how that turned out as it relates to these cells to see what your future holds. because we obviously abandoned them some time ago, and they're covered, and everything surplus is hauled to Nevada now, so. But it makes for pretty expensive disposal.
Well, if you don't have any, I just came up here to kind of clarify the questions you had about that. As a personal comment, which has nothing to do with the city of Roseville, I do agree with Sherry's comment that, you know, as you go forward with this planning effort to kind of reposition and re-image it, coming up with a name other than the Sunset Industrial Area, I think sets the tone going forward as you market it. You know, Sunset Commerce Area, Sunset Regional Business Center, Sunset Regional, you know, Commerce, something that kind of evokes an image that is, you know, employment, business, as she said, doesn't evoke the, you know, smokestacks and warehousing. I think is a great idea moving forward for marketing your plan.
Always amazing.
Yes, yeah. Well, let's say that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
You know, at least on dumps when they're done, at least it's my understanding is they really never are done. Whoever created it lives with it forever. And so, you know, this mountain that's out there will still be the responsibility of Placer County, even after the dump has already reached its maximum.
Yeah, I'm sure it'd be a park or something.
Yeah.
Nader Denayo Memorial Park.
Yeah. Okay, is there anybody else in the public that'd like to comment? Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and close it off. Thank you so much for comments and everything.
I have one question, if I
Oh,
could.
go ahead.
Just one quick question. At one point in my long past, I remember we discussed having a enterprise zone, was it? That where foreign trade could come in and be tax-free. Does anyone remember that? I see a head nodding over here.
Our historical reference just happened to be in the room. And I'm sure that's what he came in
The other
for,
old guy.
anticipating that question.
I was just curious if that was still in effect or usable or what status of it is.
Lauren Clark, CDRA, otherwise known as Historical Reference. Yeah, there was a discussion back in 1997 when we put the Sunset Industrial Area Plan together as the first update since the 1980s. There was a dialogue around that, as well as the conversations and eventually implementation of the now defunct, and I'm losing my redevelopment district for that area. So it was all part of the same package of how to move the, at that time, SIA forward with a combination of enterprise zones, redevelopment, the new plan, and at that point in time, there was a discussion about doing some infrastructure work that ultimately did not move forward. That piece of the work program did not move forward. And just part of that historical context, for those who don't know where Sunset came from, it's the Sunset International Petroleum Company of the 1960s. They owned that area.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You made me feel a lot better. I thought I was going crazy.
Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you all for coming today.